This podcast clip is taken from an interview I did with David Icke that has since been deleted by YouTube. I don't know why it was deleted. It was up to nearly 1 million views. Make of that what you will. I know the conspiracy theorists out there are going to jump all over this, but a lot of you have been complaining that you were watching it and you really wanted to see the rest of it, so I'm going to do my best to make a couple of clips out of this so that you can still watch it. That being said, we have another interesting podcast coming out on Monday with a researcher who goes even deeper into one of David Icke's theories, which is the ancient alien civilization. Now, this researcher has read tablets that are thousands of years old and claims that he has evidence that aliens were here, they made us, they made the pyramids, and a whole lot of other stuff, and you are going to have your minds blown. You think you know what the Garden of Eden was in the Bible? Turns out, it wasn't two people who had a few kids and a few more and then populated the earth. So this podcast is one of the most interesting I think I've ever done. I can't wait to see what you all think about it in the comments. Check it out this Monday evening. I'll see you there, but for now, enjoy the clip.
When I started looking around these different ancient cultures and religions, you know, one of the things that strikes me as I've researched this over the years is not how things are so different, but it's the things that people agree on. It's the things that are the same. I'm always looking for patterns of agreement over the eons of what we call time. And you find, whether you're looking at religions or whether you're looking at ancient cultures, you'll find there is this agreement. This reality, this world we call human, is manipulated from the unseen. These are the pantheons of gods, like the Greek gods and all these other gods that people worship but can't see. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our reality, is 0.005% of what exists in energy in all its forms in the universe. 0.005%. Some say it's as high as 0.5%, doesn't matter, tiny. Visible light, which is the only band of frequency we could see, is a smear, a fraction of the 0.005%. So we are basically blind, right?
It's very hard for people to accept that, though. It's easy to say to them, Wi-Fi is in this room right now, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
But people can't really wrap their head around what you're saying.
But if they want to understand the world, they need to wrap their head around it, because so many things they are waving away as impossible. This explains why they're not. When something is operating outside of visible light, say it's a UFO or an entity, when it enters visible light, to the observer, it's come out of nowhere. It hasn't, but it's come into your visual reality out of nowhere. And when it leaves, it's gone out of your visual reality. I started looking at this and doing all the ancient cultures and the religions, and you find this theme of a non-human force with negative intent on humanity that is manipulating our world from the unseen. So if you look at Christianity, they have the devil and Satan. That's their name for this force collectively. And they talk about demons. Then you look at Islam. Now, Islam, of course, is completely different from Christianity. Of course, it is, so people think. But actually, there are big areas of agreement. And one of them is the jinn. And the jinn are considered to be a force in the hidden that manipulate human society. And their collective name for the ruler of the jinn, Christian, Satan. Islam, Shaitan, or Iblis. Then you look at the Gnostic belief system, and there were documents found, like ancient documents, found at a place called Nag Hammadi in Egypt, which was about 75, 80 miles north of Luxor, on the side of the Nile. And in 1945, they found an earthen jar that they estimate these documents were placed in around 400 AD, but the content of the documents goes further back. And a fifth of these documents, they're known as the Nag Hammadi Library now, are describing a non-human force manipulating humanity from the hidden, which they call archons, which in Greek means rulers. See why they called them that. And their devil figure and Shaitan Iblis figure is called the Demiurge or Yaldabaoth. Then I talked to the great Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa in South Africa, spent days and days talking to him, who describes their legends and accounts of a non-human force manipulating human society, which they say took a reptilian form. And all around the world, you pick up this same theme. And then as I was investigating, because if you go back in what we call ancient history, the ancients were doing sacrificial rituals to these gods, right? And they were sacrificing, particularly children. The reason for that.
There was actually one found recently, the Frozen Girl.
Yeah.
She was a sacrifice that 13,000 years old or whatever. I can't remember how long.
Yeah, but what they did was they, in those days, because it was acceptable, God knows why, they did it openly, right? And it was a sacrifice to the gods. And I'll come to this in a second, but my question was, so what do the frickin' gods get out of it then? Well, I now understand. And then I'm investigating these rich and famous billionaires of today who are players in this cult. And again and again and again, I'm led into Satanism and pedophilia. Those two are absolutely connected for reasons I explain in the books. And what are these bloody billionaires doing satanic ritual sacrifices to their version of the gods, right?
It's just like the Owl God where we seen the footage that Alex Jones took.
Yeah, in Bohemian Grove.
Yeah,
stuff.
George Bush and all of them were there. Al Gore was there.
They're doing it to the same gods, right? They're same frickin' entities that the ancients were doing the sacrifices to and were terrified of. These people today are doing the sacrifices to in the cult. And I've talked to people all over the world over the decades. I've been doing this a long time. 34 years I've been doing it now, coming up 34 years. And I've met Satanists and people that took part in rituals against their will who have told me of their experiences. And these are major players like the royal family, British royal family, Dutch royal family, all that stuff, all major players in this satanic ritual culture. And so then I asked that question I mentioned a few minutes ago. Oh, so what do the gods get out of it? I take you back to the first Matrix movie, and the Morpheus character holds up a battery, and he says, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery. And that's when a massive understanding started to come to me from many different sources, which I talk about in the books. These, quote, gods, these entities are feeding off human energy, but it's a particular type of human energy. This is mainstream science. Again, every time we feel emotion, every time we think, we're generating frequencies. And those frequencies, in terms of what the frequencies are, relate to the nature of the emotion and the nature of the thought. And scientists have worked out what these frequencies are for different emotions, right? And
is that like when you go into a room and you kind of feel like, oh, there's a bad energy in here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if you go into an old house where there's been a lot of really bad things gone on, see, when the bad things are going on, the people involved in the bad things are giving off that vibe. And unless someone goes into that house and changes the frequency, they sit there vibrating. So you go into it and you think, oh, this is horrible, God, because you're picking the vibe up, right? So these are the energies I'm talking about. So these entities, by their very nature, are very low vibrational in nature, because anyone that wants to impose their will and manipulate and cause suffering and war and death and destruction is in a very low vibrational state. And if they're going to feed off human energy, They can only feed off it if we are delivering it within the band of frequency they can absorb. Because otherwise, if we were in a world of love and joy and happiness and peace, then we'd be giving off frequencies, yes, but much higher, more expanded frequencies, and they wouldn't be able to absorb them, like radio stations in the old analog system, sharing the same space but not interfering with each other because they're on different wavelengths. So we're living in a world, and again, it's about perceptual control, that is absolutely nothing like the one we appear to be experiencing. You have this demonic hierarchy, and then you have the human hierarchy, which is prime ministers and presidents and whatever, the king in this country. And that hierarchy is for public consumption. This hierarchy is the one that's calling the shots. The royal families are royal and consider themselves special bloodlines, the blue bloods, because they are vehicles for this demonic realm to enter our realm.
Is that why they only, like, even now, they're very picky with who they let in the family, right?
Yeah, apart from Jimmy Savile, of course, but he was serving them as they want, because there's a reason why why the vast numbers of them are pedophiles. And now what we have is a rump royal family. You've got Charles, and then you've got William, and his kids then are very, very young. You've got Prince Harry and his handler, Meghan Markle, who are firing missiles across the bloody Atlantic at the royal family and what have you.
I've got a question about him, actually, because you, in quite good detail, broke down the fate of Diana and that the likelihood is she was killed.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Prince Harry and Meghan situation has been brought about by him suspecting that his mother was murdered?
But I don't know. All I can say is that when you look at the evidence, if you don't realize it was a murder, in fact, a ritual murder in many ways, then you're not paying attention. I mean, it's so bloody obvious. I mean, you know, the symbolism. They love their symbolism. This cult. It's all about symbolism in so many ways. It's their language.
I remember once you kind of did a tour of London where you were pointing out how much satanic and royal symbolism are the same.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they are. And if you look at the Diana thing, I mean, Diana was the ancient moon goddess, right? And
do you mean like that was the name actually of?
Yeah, the ancients used to worship Diana as a goddess, goddess of the moon, etc. And Pont Dalma Tunnel, where she died, is called the British translates as the Bridge or Passage of the Moon Goddess. I mean, these people, they absolutely love the symbolism. And if you can start to understand the language of symbolism, you can see they're telling us, but of course, they know most people don't know this language of symbolism, but they're telling us. She was murdered for sure.
And even with the royal wear and the cloak and everything, like, and some of these big friggin' gold sticks where they've got emblems on them, you've pointed all of that out and brought it back to what it really means.
Yeah, well, you look, I mean, it's relatively topical. You look at the coronation of Prince Charles. I mean, it was all symbolism. It was all satanic, esoteric symbolism. I met a guy once whose mother was a psychic lady, and she was into all the esoteric. And he said, you know, my mother can predict the colors that the Queen Mother is going to wear any day because it's all according to the esoteric calendar.
What does esoteric mean?
Hidden.
Okay.
What's called the occult. Occult is just a word meaning hidden. It's that which is hidden.
Things such as like the checkered floors and stuff like that.
It's all symbolism, and it's all in some way interacting with energy to manipulate energy in a certain way. The satanic rituals are all the way they're conducted is to manipulate the energetic field, and what they do is do the same rituals in the same places over and over and over again. And what that does is it thins, because what these rituals are doing, like I said earlier, is they're interacting with these lower astral, quote, gods, demons, entities. And the more they do it in the same place, they thin out the dimensional difference at that point between our world and that world. And I've been described to me many times by Satanists how these entities in the major rituals slip through from their dimension into this one and appear in front of the Satanists.
Could that be almost like a vision, like, you know, people have visions while meditating, a lot of people. Could that be on, or do you mean literally they appear physically?
Well, literally they appear, but they can't stay for long because there is a vibrational difference between what they're vibrating on and what this
sort of like a ghost
is vibrating on. But they can come in for a short time and then they leave. You mentioned earlier about Wi-Fi and stuff. Well, if I said to people that knew nothing about computers that there was a field of information in this room that you could tap into anywhere in the world if you had the right kit, people would say, "You're mad, mate. What are you talking about? I can't see it. Where is it?" Because the five sense centric people, which is most people because they are encouraged and manipulated to be five sense centric, their arbiter of everything is, can I see it, touch it, taste it, hear it, see it, etc. But that is such a tiny band of frequency, it's laughable. The world we think we're in is so tiny. Do you know 99.9, this is mainstream science, 99.9% of the universe is plasma. It's not physical at all, it's plasma. And what they call the atomic level, which is made up of atoms, but atoms themselves are empty, gives you a clue this is not solid, is a tiny smear of the universe. And that tiny smear is what our narrow band of visible light is connected to see. So we're looking at this smear, and the rest of the universe exists all around us, including with these entities in it, but we're not aware of it. And because we're not aware of it, we think it doesn't exist. It actually does. So you've got this Wi-Fi. And if you say to people now who know about computers and know about Wi-Fi, you say the same, you know, there's a field of information in this room that you can tap into anywhere in the world. People say, oh, yeah, Wi-Fi, I know about that, yeah. And the only difference between I know about that and you're mad is knowledge. That's all it is. So the more you can manipulate knowledge and suppress knowledge, the more people will dismiss what's actually happening because they can't perceive that it's possible to happen because that knowledge has been kept from them. And so what you have with this cult is two worlds in one world. You have the secret society network I've described, which is fiercely compartmentalized. Only the inner core really know the story. And then you've got the population. And what's happening is the knowledge of reality and the knowledge of where humanity is being taken is kept in the cult. And it's passed over through the generations. And the same cult has created the education system. In America, it was created by the Rockefellers, not least J.D. Rockefeller. And they own the media. They own the sources of information, apart from, you know, people who are working to uncover this stuff. And so that information source to the population is designed to be as narrow as possible so that people have no bloody idea what they know. And when people like me start uncovering through sweat and spit what they know and passing it on to the population, a lot of the population go, "You're mad, mate," and that's the idea.
It reminds me of an interview you had with Philip Schofield, and he said, "Oh, so you want to go against the system? It would just be chaos." And you replied, "Bombing kids from the skies is chaos, and that's what I'm against." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I am fascinated by this idea that there's a gap in human history where things changed. And I know you've talked a little bit about some of the Anunnaki side of, we were once visited by aliens who then sort of changed us genetically, and then we would then look more like them. And do you think that there's a cross, a bit where the demons and aliens are the same thing, or are they completely different?
I think overwhelmingly they are the same thing, yeah. I think this is going to be controversial, Brian.
Well, we like that.
So many of the religions are worshipping the wrong, quote, chap. The bloodthirsty, arrogant tyrant of a god described in the Old Testament is the demons. And I think a lot of these gods that people worship, or their version of God in the different religions, are actually this demonic realm. And
what makes you think that?
You read the Old Testament God, and I mean, he's a tyrant. He's a bloodthirsty, bloody tyrant. Oh, he's a loving God. Well, it don't seem like it. I've read some of the passages. They don't look like it. You must only worship me, And in these Gnostic documents found in 1945, supposed to have been put in that jar in around 400 AD, they quote Yod-Baoth, the demiurge, their version of the devil, Satan, Shaitan, Iblis, and they quote him almost word for word, saying the bloody same. You must not worship any god but me. I am the only God, and all that stuff. They talk about, was it the sons of God who interbred with the daughters of men and created this Nephilim race or whatever.
Can you explain that just a little bit? Because that is, a lot of people don't know about that theory.
Well, that's a line in the Bible about the sons of God, sons of the gods. Sons of the gods, it actually says, it's been translated as sons of God, singular, actually means what it says. It's translated from, says sons of the gods, plural. And it talks about the interbreeding between the sons of God and humans, creating this Nephilim type race they talked about. And you look at other sources of other cultures, and they'll tell you the same story, same basic story. I mean, the Adam and Eve story, you can find that in many different cultures, told in different ways. The biblical stories are actually an amalgamation of stories that go much further back and have been put in another location and put in another context.
It is funny that there's similar characters that show themselves in all of these different books written by different people thousands of years apart.
Yeah, exactly. So you have this biological computer that's actually decoding the matrix, which is why when the biological computer ceases to function, in other words, what we call death, consciousness leaves the body, because the biological computer is no longer decoding the matrix because it's not functioning anymore. So consciousness leaves, and this is when you see all the stunning numbers of stories now around the world of near-death experiences where they talk about they experienced a completely different reality, which clearly had a very different law of physics, right? Now, this is interesting. I said earlier, when just after the turn of the millennium, I had this overwhelming feeling that this is a simulation, and that the limit of the simulation at this level, there are others, is the speed of light. And speed of light only appears to scientists like Einstein to be the fastest speed because it's limited to this reality. And at the time that I got this feeling very strongly and started talking about it, I obviously looked around and thought, well, is anyone else getting this stuff about we live in a simulation? And I found one guy, that's all, a guy called Nick Bostrom, professor at Oxford University, who was saying that he felt this could be a simulation, but the way he saw it was different to me. And then, as the years have passed, I started writing about it. And as the years have passed, more and more mainstream scientists, one only 2 weeks ago that was in all the papers in Britain, in Portsmouth University, have started to say, both sides of the Atlantic, and in Japan and places like that, it does look like this is a simulation. And if you go down the road of the simulation hypothesis, all these mysteries of life that cannot be explained by the official version of this reality start to get answered. Then in April 2021, there was an article in Scientific American, a mainstream science magazine obviously in America. And it was an academic who said he'd concluded that this is a simulation and that the limit of it is the speed of light. I nearly fell off my bloody chair. Mm-hmm. The laws of physics, what we call the laws of physics, are the limits of the game as encoded into the game by the creators of the game. Which is why when people leave, the consciousness leaves the body, leaves the decoding mechanism of the matrix, the biological computer, they experience a world with a very different law of physics. The law of physics that we have is only limited to this reality.
A scientist I know, he actually became a believer in a creator and a God when he was looking at blood under a microscope, because he said he could see the design of blood. He said, I could almost see the fingerprints of whoever created us right there. The patterns were there. It's like, this isn't an accident.
It's not an accident, it's a creation. But,
We're told by mainstream scientists a lot that we are just little specks, of dust almost, that are here by fluke chance, by a complete Big Bang accident that just so happened, and now we're all here living our lives out. And when you look off into the universe, we can see how minute we are and how unimportant we are. But yet we've never explored any of it, and even what we have explored turned out that didn't even look like that was real, right? The moon landing, for example.
Well, that's a great point, and which I've written about in the books.
Are we more important than we are led to believe?
Yes, we are, because we're consciousness and we're part of the infinite realm of consciousness. Therefore, we're as powerful as that infinite range of consciousness ultimately. But what the matrix does, the simulation, is it holds us in a perceptual prison cell that convinces us, that's why this is happening, convinces us that we're insignificant and just little me and we've got no power. If you want to control billions of people, or billions of expressions of consciousness in human bodies, isn't that what you want them to believe? And then there's this other point. There was a guy called Fermi, who after whom something called the Fermi paradox is named. And he looked up into the night sky, not surprisingly, and he said, where's the frickin' aliens? There's all those lights, there's all those planets. They talk about billions of stars and billions of planets and billions of universes, whatever. Where's the bloody aliens? Now, if you were creating a simulation and your target, you wanted to keep in total ignorance of everything, so they would just be your cattle to farm of energy, you don't want interaction with the outside that's going to widen your perspective of what's going on. You want to look into the night sky and feel alone and feel insignificant and feel small. That's all that is there for. And what are they manipulating? We keep coming back to it. They're manipulating our perception.
Do you think they're lying about what's outside of our atmosphere? As in, when I say they, I mean, like, let's say NASA, for example, who are heavily funded by the American taxpayer beyond belief, with very little to actually show for it, other than we went to the moon, God knows, 50-odd years ago and somehow destroyed the technology that can take us back there. But we'll go there again sometime. Because NASA specifically are a company that I just do not trust a word they say, because there's so little to show for how much.
Well, how NASA came about as a result of Nazi scientists.
It was an ego race, basically.
Yeah, towards the end of the war, the Second World War, there was something called Project Paperclip. This has been well documented now, where the Americans, the American expression of the cult has no borders, therefore for public consumption, organized something like 1,600, probably a lot more, but we know of 1,600 scientists, Nazi scientists, out of Germany to America, and they created NASA, which really should be called Nazi, really.
They were literally Nazi scientists.
Yeah, one of them was Werner von Braun, who designed the V-2 rockets that attacked London in the Second World War. And then he went to America and helped to set up NASA, and he designed the Saturn V rockets of the Apollo missions, right? So he was a great example of it, and he was a Nazi. And because there's no borders, this is why the Rockefellers were funding the Nazis. There's no borders.
The us versus them is only in the mind of the people, right?
So the people fight each other. That's all it is. So NASA is never going to tell you about one or two people working there might, who are not in the inner circle, and often at the end of their careers before they retire. But they're not going to uncover the great secrets of the universe. Why? Because they don't bloody want you to know them. That's the point. I'm talking about the inner core that controls NASA. So funnily enough, in I think it was 2017, there was a NASA computer scientist, I think he's retired pretty soon afterwards, called Rich Terrell, who came out in the media and said he'd concluded that this is a simulation. It's a holographic simulation, exactly what I was saying just after the turn of the millennium, and that as a result, it can't be natural. And if it's not natural, then some intelligence must have created it. Yes, that demonic force we're talking about. So you have the body decoding the simulation into a reality that appears one way, but it's actually nothing like it. Now, here's an analogy. What I'm seeing so obviously as the years go on is that this explosion of technology that is taking over human society and running it through AI is mimicking the way that we decode reality and what reality is, the reality we're experiencing. How are the virtual reality games impacting on our reality? Well, you put a headset on, 5 sense eyes. You put the headphones on, 5 sense hearing. You put the gloves on, 5 sense touch, and so on and so forth. They're overriding and hacking in to our 5 sense decoding system, and which is communicated to the brain, which then decodes it into a sense of reality in the same way that we are.
Have you ever been in one of those, by the way? They're unbelievable. Like, you really are, like, it takes a few seconds to get used to it, but once you're in there, you really do forget that there's another world.
Yeah.
You're in there.
Now, that's a very interesting comment because of what I'm going to say. And the more sophisticated and advanced they become, the closer and closer and closer they're getting to a sense of reality in the game that is like the one we're having when we take the headset off.
Doesn't that go back to what you were saying about humans' belief that the technology we have right now has to be the most advanced?
Yeah. And
the idea that something more advanced could have been created thousands of years ago, we can't comprehend that, but it is very possible.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, I'll mention when I finish this next bit about the biological. Is that really natural? Who says? So what you have with the virtual reality game is if you go on the internet, there's loads of them, and you look at a compilation of the reactions of people, not even with the gloves on and the hearing, but just the headset.
Yep.
And they're screaming, they're falling over, they're jumping. Their reality has been completely taken over by what's coming at them through the headset. But then they can go, oh, it's just a game, right? Now, what if this biological computer was the equivalent of a 5 sense, not just 1 sense, a 5 sense headset, And the only way you could take it off your consciousness is if you leave this reality.
If you die.
Yeah. So you're in the womb and your body computer is developing. You come out of the womb and there's your parents. They've got headsets on. Your siblings got headsets on. You go to school, the teachers have got headsets on. All your mates have got headsets on. You turn on the television, someone's reading the news with a freaking headset on. You go out into the world of work and everyone has got headsets on, believing this reality to be real. And you are going to have the headset on, decoding the matrix constantly until you leave this world. And you go through an experience where you leave the body and you're in a different realm of physics because this is no longer functioning. You are going to believe, Brian, clearly, just look at the compilations on the internet of a game. You're going to believe that this reality is as it seems to be, and what you're being told is what is the real world, when actually it's just a decoding mechanism. People say biological is natural. Okay, it's a natural body. And natural trees and all that stuff. I'm not saying these things don't exist in some other reality, of which this is a copy. I mean, a bad copy, as the Gnostics described it in their documents. This is a bad copy of prime reality.
Kind of like where we had the Garden of Eden and then another version which we're now living in.
And you trick them into it. Now, this is interesting. Garden of Eden. Who tricked them?
The snake.
Snake. What's that symbolic of? I've said to Christian people, do you really think that that's describing a talking snake? It's all symbolic. It's all symbolic. And then you say, well, what happened is that brought them into the trap is they saw good and evil. What's that? Polarity. Polarity. This whole simulation is polarity. It's basically an electrical system. It's an electromagnetic system. That's this level that we're experiencing. The rest is plasma. It's this electrical level. And electricity requires polarity, which is why, and what's happening is they're trying to get the population to respond to that polarity all the time.
I remember hearing you once describe the situation we're in with the world right now as imbalance.
Imbalance, yeah. Well, what we need, in my view, is one hand fricking clapping, and then we might get somewhere. Because what happens is imposition, polarity. Resistance to the imposition, polarity. Oh, you've got an electrical system now. We don't need resistance. We need to say we're not doing it. We're not cooperating. And then you've got one hand clapping, and you've taken the polarity out. You've taken
it all falls apart.
The system that connects you both. I mean, Israel and Hamas are two polarities in an electrical system. And the people taking the consequences are the civilians on both sides caught up in it. It's everywhere you look. It's polarity. And so what I say to people is the natural world is natural. The biological is natural. Oh yeah. Okay. So what are you comparing it with? Well, I'm comparing it with technology. Yeah. But how do you know that the biological is not a far, far more advanced version of technology? How do you know that? Unless you have something that you solid gold irrefutably know is natural, you have nothing to compare it with. You only compare it with the technological, which makes it look natural. This cult in a core knows it's not natural, and it treats it as a form of technology. That's how it treats the biological. You know, when you're having a dream, and you don't know it's a dream, you are being emotionally and mentally impacted by the dream. Nightmare is a classic example of what I'm talking about. But have you ever had these dreams? I have a lot of these, where you're having a dream, but you know it's a freaking dream.
Yep.
Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah.
Well, what happens? You're not emotionally and mentally impacted upon it anymore. You're the observer. You're observing the dream because you know it's a dream.
You do things in a completely different way, like the fight or flight type dreams, which I've had a lot of for whatever reason. I think it's a normal thing for blokes, but you seem sort of passive, don't you? Like you feel like, yeah, whatever happens. I know this isn't real.
Yeah,
it's a completely different attitude.
Completely different.
That's kind of like enlightenment, I suppose.
Exactly. You're starting to suss it. So when you're living in this reality, you're in this world. Of course you are, because while you're in a body, it's going to be decoding the matrix into the reality you think you're experiencing. But consciously, you know it's a dream. You know it's an induced dream. You know it's an illusion. And what happens is the more it becomes part of you, not just a concept, but part of you, the more your life becomes not totally, because, you know, the impact emotionally on people is constant, but to a vastly greater extent, you become the observer of the dream. And things that used to impact upon you, the drama, oh my God, have you heard the latest? Oh, see what's happened to so-and-so? Oh.
You're detached.
You're observing it. You know it's all nonsense.